Before we start, I want to get a couple of things out of the way, such as MISA stands for Movement for Spiritual Integration in the Absolute. MISA's focus is stated to be on Tantric Yoga, which is defined to be a more indulgent yoga in that you make love to your own body with an attempt to reach enlightenment. But according to MISA's leader, Gregorian Bivolaru, Tantrism is celebrated as much needed liberation of sexuality, a glorification of the human body, and an empowerment of women. With its apparent union of spirituality and sexuality, sacred transcendence, and material enjoyment. Now we can start the basic facts with. Bivolaru started with an underground yoga group. Between 1997 and 1989, Romania was under communist rule, and part of the laws put in place was that yoga and pornography were banned. In 1970, a small group including Bivolaru started to teach underground yoga classes, as well as selling pornography until 1977, when they were caught. Bivolaru served a year in prison. Then in 1984, Bivolaru was arrested again, this time for illegal distribution of both pornography and mystical publications, as well as working as a yoga instructor. Bivolaru tried to escape custody but was caught shortly after, adding a year to his 6-month sentence. In 1989, Bivolaru was arrested yet again for the same charges, but this time he was sentenced to a psychiatric hospital. There's an ongoing argument about whether Bivolaru was found to have a mental disorder. The attending physician stated he didn't find any disorders, but he was told by others that Bivolaru was a paranoid schizophrenic. Either way, the doctor released Bivolaru later that year with a clean bill of health. In 1982, the practice of MISA was banned even after the fall of communism in Romania. MISA continued to grow, however, but in 2004, police raided 16 different MISA homes and arrested dozens of members, including Bivolaru. While awaiting trial, Bivolaru was able to escape to Sweden and claimed to be a political prisoner. In 2005, when Romania tried to extradite Bivolaru, Sweden gave him political refugee status, canceling the extradition. MISA groups began to pop up all over the world. MISA was able to obtain enough buildings throughout the world to create training centers for yogis, yoga schools, and spiritual retreat. MISA began to present itself as the main institution to reach full enlightenment. To MISA, when someone becomes enlightened, they have infinite knowledge and they can do no wrong. Bivolaru stated he became enlightened at the age of 19. As with any cult, the road to enlightenment costs money, and with MISA, to be able to attend the required spiritual retreat, it'll cost $150,000 per person. And not only do they teach yoga here, they also teach parapsychology, astrology, and alternative therapies. But if you're female, you will be required to give a few more things to attend the spiritual retreat, including nude photos of yourself and negative results from an STD test. In 1990, MISA began to set up summer camps in Romania specifically for female members who wanted to become yogis, aka enlightened. At these summer camps, the groups would hold Miss Sakti contests, which is an India tradition that is supposed to create safe spaces for women so that they can empower each other. But MISA's version forces women and young girls to be filmed while performing sexual acts on each other and dancing nude. Even more so, ex-members who attended the camp state that the Miss Sakti contest is strictly for Bivolaru so that he can pick out which women he wants to add to his harem group and which ones to use for the pornographic films the group sells. Bivolaru and members are arrested for human trafficking. In 2010, Bivolaru, along with 50 other members of MISA, are arrested in Romania for human trafficking. But later that year, all would be found not guilty due to lack of evidence. And in July of 2011, Romania came out and stated that all of the crimes against Bivolaru were fabricated by the communist regime and were politically motivated, removing his name from all charges. But the charge of having sex with underage girls was only dismissed because of lack of evidence. Bivolaru preached about the end of the world. According to Bivolaru's teachings, he states that when you reach enlightenment, you can begin to talk to aliens. These aliens told Bivolaru that the world was going to end in 2012, so he decided to tell members to give him all of their money and possessions as a gift for his prophecy, because they would be dead soon anyways. So when 2012 came along and the world didn't end, Bivolaru started to demonize the group known as the Freemasons. The Freemasons are a group of males that make up a fraternal order which can be traced back to the 13th century, who strive to live virtuous lives in public and private, who had George Washington among their ranks. Bivolaru preaches that the Freemasons are a satanic group of powerful people who are trying to control the world, and that they persecute MISA because MISA is trying to help humanity. Bivolaru also preaches that the Freemasons are trying to reduce the population of Earth by deliberately infecting people with artificially made viruses, such as AIDS and SARS. He also states that the Freemasons own Area 51 and that they are not only in contact with aliens, they are also keeping one of the world's best microbiologists captive and forcing him to make viruses. More ex-members came forward with claims of abuse. Ex-female members started coming forward stating that they had been forced into prostitution and or recorded for pornographic films while being part of MISA. The women stated they were told it would help with their karma burn. Karma burn is a MISA belief that says if anything bad or negative happens to you, it's due to a karmic debt. And to pay that debt, one must endure negative and bad things, specifically prostitution. Other members stated that the dance classes owned by Bivolaru were to find women to work for the sex clubs that he runs in Japan. Even a former member who's an actress came forward to tell about the initiation ceremony that is only for female members, and only given by Bivolaru, which ultimately consists of women and underage girls being forced to have sex with Bivolaru, because this is how he gives them the divine energy to become enlightened. Bivolaru is wanted by the European Court of Human Rights. In 2013, Romania was able to get a retrial against Bivolaru for human trafficking and sex with underage girls. The trial was granted to go ahead without Bivolaru's presence, but he was ultimately found guilty for sleeping with minors and sentenced to 6 years in prison. He was acquitted for human trafficking. In 2016, Interpol was able to track down Bivolaru, who had been living in France under the alias Magnus Orelson. But after a little over a year served in Romanian prison, Bivolaru was released. In early 2021, the European Court of Human Rights proclaimed that Bivolaru is a criminal on the run for forcing his followers to turn over all of their money and possessions, as well as making followers not only have sex with him, but with each other. As of this recording, Bivolaru hasn't been caught. There's a large debate about whether or not Bivolaru is a criminal or a victim of political rule. But whichever one you decide to believe, you now know the basic facts about the MISA yoga cult. Thanks for watching.